Check, check, check. Check, check, check. What is going on, guys? Thank you for joining me today. It's impromptu stream, but I just felt like so much was going on. Mourinho spoke to Corriere dello Sport. Ibanez has been sold to Saudi Arabia. We're going to take a look at those teams. We're going to also talk about what is Roma going to do with Scamacca being sold to Atalanta. I felt like that was the perfect player. Kamada joins Lazio, guys that we've spoken about on this channel. And on top of that, Roma are just 15 days away from the season starting. Any player who comes in now is not going to have a full preseason. Will it be Belotti as the number 9? Let me know how you guys are doing. Also, let me know where you guys are coming in from. Write a comment. I want to know. That's your Roma news in a nutshell. If you're like, Wayne, I've only got 45 seconds. Okay, I understand. Leave a like and subscribe. But for everybody else, we're going to dive deep into these topics. So one thing you might notice, guys, is I've got a new studio going on. I've got a new teal colored background. What's up with that? Baby, man. Baby's in the spare room now where I had my studio. But I kind of like this. You're going to see hopefully the Totti shirt or something. I'm going to make it, Roma-fied soon. But yeah, thanks for joining, guys. So let's talk about the first thing, which is Ibanez being sold. This is going to be about 28 million euros. In fact, let's get into the details of this deal. And we've got, right here. I think we've got it up by Di Marzio, who was reporting on it. Maybe I went away from the page. That's okay. But one thing that I did see Ibanez do at the airport just now is he wrote, a fan was taking a picture with him, and then he said, Forza Lazio, right? And he said, go F yourself. And I thought that was a good bit from him. But as we're looking at this squad that Ibanez is going to join, we've got quite the cast of players with Al Ali. So he joins Mahrez. I'm going to share this screen to you as well. Let's take a look at that. This is a pretty interesting squad. Al Ali, here we go. There's two others we're going to take a look at. So he joins Mahrez, who comes over from Manchester City, Firmino from Liverpool, of course, Saint-Maxime, who this is the same company that owns Newcastle. It's the private investment group. They're part of Saudi Arabian government, and we see that he's not going to be by himself. Ibanez, this is not a one-off. In fact, they're making quite a powerful team. You can see the rest of these players are Saudi, but then you've got Edouard Mendy in net from Senegal there. So they've got an impressive resume of players here so far, an impressive squad. So Mahrez, Maxime, and Firmino right there. I mean, what more do you want in attack? You've got your false 9. You've got Mahrez on the right. And then Maximin is going to rip it up on the flanks for sure in Saudi Arabia. I mean, come on, how tough is this league? But it's also worth taking a look at some of these other teams, such as Al Ittihad. We see Fabinho there. And Conte, that's how he joined on an insane salary for him, along with Benz and Diogo Jota, which I was surprised he went over. How old is Jota? Like 26, 24. Okay. So a young, powerful Portuguese attacker. They're able to convince him. They give him that big money, and he joins a player who's, from Benfica's youth academy, somebody that you would think would be on an elite European team, is convinced by the money in the desert. It's kind of disappointing in a way because, we're not going to be able to see these players. There is going to be an effect on Serie A, I think, definitely. I think there's going to be an effect in that players who leave from England are going to join Saudi Arabia for big money. Then where else is England going to look? They're going to be searching in Serie A. They're going to be taking talent away. So what does Serie A do? I think they need to rely on marketing, exposure, getting the league to grow. but also changing the way things are done in Italy. I think there needs to be a federal overhaul. I think that the powers at be need to start really analyzing what is going on with youth football in Italy. Are they investing in it? Are there programs? Are they trying to get kids in? Are there subsidies in order to make these academies bigger and better and get more kids in, and say, no, we're going to have an identity as Italy. It's not just going to be, okay, this cycle, we're good. Every 8 years, every 12 years, Italy has a really decent team. No, it should be cyclical. And I know maybe Germany's a bad example right now because they're struggling nationally, but they're going to be back because they've got the infrastructure in place. So I think that Italy, in order to avoid falling into despair, needs to look at the sporting sense of how these players are being developed, and or else they're going to be at risk of losing more and more to international powers, whether that's England or Saudi Arabia. We take a look at Al Hilal here. Koulibaly joined them, Ruben Neves and Carrillo from Peru. Who else? Any other names that we might recognize? Yeah, Malcolm at the bottom right here. Roma fans know Malcolm, and for being a bust at Barcelona, luckily for Roma, that was a Monchi purchase, and that didn't work out for Malcolm for the rest of his career, but now he's getting paid anyway. So there you have it. But the Ibanez deal, I want to go back to that for a second. So let's type in Ibanez, Di Marzio. There we go. All right, very good. Now I'm going to share this tab. And guys, leave in your comments as well. We get into them in just a few seconds after we handle this Ibanez news. So 28.5 million euros, that's the flat fee. And then 3 million euros of easy bonuses, and then 20% of the resale. So let's say Ibanez gets tired of being in Saudi Arabia in 3 years at the end of his contract. Let's say these teams don't pay, whatever it might be. He's like, I want to get out of Saudi. I want to go back to Brazil, whoever it is. Let's say he's sold for 20 million. Roma get 20% of that. That would be 4 million euros. So that's a pretty good deal, in my opinion. Around 1.5 million will be paid to Al Ali for solidarity. I'm not sure what that means. And tomorrow there will be the medical. So you're looking at a deal upwards of 31.5 plus the resale, with another 1.5 million paid from Al Ali. I'm not sure when that's going to be paid, but that's a deal worth around 33 million euros, 20% add-on. It's good business by Pinto, but the issue is not always just the business that you're selling. It's how you reinvest, right? And I want to ask you guys, I want to ask everybody, hey, what's up? We've got somebody actually from Saudi right now, FFW98. Nice to hear from him. I want to ask you in this banner here, how should Pinto reinvest the Ibanez cash? Yeah, let's do that now. So I should probably stop sharing for a second as well. So tell me, what does Pinto do right now? He's got 30 million, give or take. How can Roma reinvest this? We know that there's got to be some, which is proportion to covering Ibanez. Now it's Mancini, Smalling, and Llorente, as well as Indica. That's 4, but there needs to be a 5th in the rotation. What can Roma do to recoup that loss? Is it going to be a high-profile signing? I don't think so. And then, of course, Kambula eventually will come back. But for the start of the season, for the next 6 months, for definitely at least the first half, there has to be somebody who comes in, whether that's a gamble and it's a youngster, a 10 million euro Brazilian, for instance, or Argentinian from a smaller league, or is it somebody older, a type of Matic deal, or is it somebody like Llorente, somebody who is out of favor but in the prime of their career comes over? I like Llorente a lot. I think that is a deal which worked out really good for Roma. He comes over again, a second season with him. That's been really good. So if it's me, I think that you definitely have to, like here, Vincent says, you got to steal Sanchez. Speaking of Sanchez, I'm not so hurt by the Kamada deal to Lazio because I don't know if he fits so much into the 3-5-2, which we see Mourinho playing so much more of in preseason right now. Renato Sanchez is much more of the ideal midfielder that you want in the 3-5-2 rather than somebody who's more attacking like Kamada. We already see that position is covered by not just Awad, but also Pellegrini. And who else could even fill into that role? Just off the top of your head, Solbakken could probably even play more of an outside, maybe as like the second forward. But I think that role is definitely covered Whereas Sanchez, it's much more of an ideal signing for Mourinho right now. He says, get another cheap defender, spend the majority of the money from Ibanez on a striker. And with that, we should definitely mention Marcos, who should be coming over from Santos with a deal about 10 to 13 million euros. And I like the sound of it. He's a striker who can play with his back to goal. He's strong, but he's 20 years old. Exactly what can you expect from a 20-year-old? Maybe some highlight goals, some really good moments, but 20 is really young to go and say, we're going to totally depend on you. Instead, you get somebody who can rotate. Now, I see names like Arnautovic, even Mertens popped up yesterday. I don't really believe that one, but I like this signing a lot. To me, it sounds like somebody who could definitely play a role. I'm also intrigued by this name of Zapata. Speaking about playing with your back to goal, he's strong. He can hold off defenders. He's fast, and he can definitely put goals away, as we know. So good seeing everybody in here as well. And Marcos Leonardo, and a young defender too. Also, what I've seen from Marcos is he is the 20-year-old who's played the most in Brazil of all players in that age bracket. And that's something which is really convincing, I think, as well, that you have a guy that you can depend on. Even with that young age, he is somebody which you can say, okay, we're going to say this kid, if we're going to integrate him, half the season or 3/4 of the season as the starter. But when he has those lulls, it's going to take time. He's going to have to be nurtured. It's a good thing that he speaks the same language as the coach. I think that's a great thing. Of course, we lose one Portuguese speaker in Ibanez, but there's still Rui Patricio. There is also the manager. So anyone else I'm forgetting off the top of my head? I don't think so. That speaks Portuguese. Maybe Llorente, just because he's from Spain. I don't want to assume that, though. So with Arnautovic, he's about 6'3", 6'4", around 36 years old. He puts in around 10 goals per season. Like I said, he's a big body. He's been around, whether that's in England, I think for Sunderland or Fulham, one of those, somebody with red and white stripes. Then he went out, I think, to China, and now he's back with Bologna which would be his third season now. So that's an interesting player to a point. Like, how excited could fans be about him? But at the same time, he's someone who does his job. He's someone who will take the weight off of somebody like Marcos Leonardo. Now, speaking about Morata, Mourinho in his interview discusses a certain player, and I think this is a great segue. Keep the comments coming in, guys. Keep the likes in as well. So let's go over. Let me pull this up real quick. I'm not going to just pop it in right now, but let me take a look at this. Okay, I've got this pulled up. I'm going to share this now. Let's do it. Mourinho interview to Corriere dello Sport. Let's read word for word, because I think he is hinting, like HH says, about Morata. So this is a condensed version that I put on Twitter here. Now, there is a bigger version available on Corriere dello Sport, but I don't subscribe to them. It's not too much more either. This is like really the gist of it. He says, I signed for Roma because when I met the Friedkins, their way of speaking really struck me. Those words touched me deeply. That's what I needed. We think you're the right person to help us make Roma a bigger club, they told me. They transmitted their enthusiasm in a project that provided me with a 3-year contract. Progressive growth, which I had never taken into consideration when I arrived here. I knew very well what I was getting into. The many young players I've had make their debut grow in these 2 years. When you work for a club like Real, Manchester, or Chelsea, if you launch one young player a season, you've already done your best. So there's two things I like here. I like that he was excited to come, and then I also like that he was given a project. Like, it wasn't just, okay, this is what we got, and no, he's like, I'm here because they're going to use me to make this club bigger. But one thing I think on top of that is Mourinho is somebody who establishes an attitude, and we've spoken about this before. We've analyzed the data that Roma was, at a time, the club which came back and scored the most goals from the 80th minute onwards, and that's something which changes up here, right? So in the third season now, should we see much of the same? I think we'll see a stronger Roma, a team which is more mature. I think Ibanez's sale was good business. I do think he made a lot of mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes which made me frustrated, which made you annoyed, whether it was in the derby or another big game. I have to think that Ibanez does not have that high of a ceiling. Athletically, yeah, he's great athletically. But when it comes to playing in a Mourinho system, which is based so much on concentration, I don't think he was that guy. I think he can get you to a level, but not beyond that. That's my honest opinion about Ibanez. Will I miss him? Sure. He was one of our guys. He was one of the good guys. He never made a fuss. He worked really hard. Sometimes it's just time to move on. And now the challenge is, who does Mourinho get? So let's continue. He says, I know that Roma were an absolutely fantastic club on a social level. When you get to know the Roma players, you wonder why they've won so little. If now I regret the choice to have joined, I answer no, absolutely not. And then he goes to that strikerless photo. Maybe in social media, maybe on Instagram, you saw Mourinho and the players posing with nobody after one of the partitelle, one of the small-sided games. And he was criticized on Roma Radio, the Roman radios that surround the club. There's so many, and they're always criticizing Mourinho. And he says there was no afterthought. The photo with the imaginary attacker was made for laughs. No provocation. That wasn't the intention. I have fun even in these difficult moments. I get angry for an hour, and immediately after, I come back positive. With regards to the imaginary striker, even if Mbappe arrives next week, he would still be late. So he's like, I do feel for him. Like, as much as fans want to complain about his tactics or that they're not playing the way they need to, look, the squad is far from complete, if we're being honest. There's no striker. Ibanez just left. Rui Patricio, no. It's time to move on to a number one. Mourinho knows that. Do you think if this was Mourinho's Chelsea, either one of his Chelseas, he'd be like, yeah, Rui Patricio, all good? No, of course not. Of course not. So now you see a decent Turkish keeper signed by Inter. That's the type of player that I would probably like for Roma. Di Gregorio, I think, is another one of those guys, but I'm not sure if it's going to be someone off the beaten path. Will it be somebody who's more proven, like a Sirigu type signing? I don't know. We haven't heard anything. Zero rumors about a keeper. And all that points to probably Patricio is going to be the starting keeper this season and will remain it. How do you feel about that? I know how you feel. The striker situation. After Tammy's departure, in quotation marks, we are in a situation that no coach in the world would like. Pinto knows we are late. Even the ownership knows. In the end, who really suffers are those who work in training. Against Salernitana, we will have to enter the field with the best possible team. That is around the corner. It is the 7th of August. That match is the 20th of August. That's less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. That's next Sunday. Not the next Sunday. 2 Sundays from now. Speaking of Belotti, he's staying and will have a much more productive season. For me, in the attack, I have a name because I'm usually very objective and pragmatic. There is one, but it's not possible to get him, so I was told. Morata? I'm just telling you, it's not Mbappe. I think it's Morata. I think that he's a striker who Mourinho knows very well from their time at Real Madrid. I think he can get him to work off the ball. He's in his prime. He's smart. He bags between 10 to 16 goals on average per season, no matter where he goes. The question I have about Morata is, why does he never settle in? Why does he seem to be going from team to team, like doesn't really become adored by any coach or fan group? But now I read that Atletico is offering him a new contract, so who knows what to believe at this point. But if this goes on for another 5-6 days and Morata does not sign a contract, I think he's probably going to end up being a Roma player with Marcos, and I think that would be a better situation. I also enjoy the idea of him and Dybala. One, because it would make Dybala happy, but two, because I think they could be a decent partnership. So there you go. You've got Belotti staying, Morata not happening right now, and hopefully Marcos comes. Relationship with the refs. And guys, keep the comments coming in too. We'll get to them right after we wrap up the interview here. He says, if we do UEFA here and Italy there, I feel much better when I talk about UEFA and less about Italy. In Italy, I felt attacked. They violated my freedom as a man of passion. I no longer feel at ease here. I'm afraid of receiving further disqualifications. I said the same things about Kifi that Modric said about Orsato. Exactly the same things. But we don't see the same punishment, right? For Mourinho, it's always drastic, which is so annoying. About his future, he says, I have never thought of leaving. I have always done my job without thinking about the aftermath. I have always respected the property and the people. I feel that there is respect and a lot of esteem on their part for the coach. It's the ownership that needs to talk to you. For a few days, I thought, enough kids. Why should I build with kids if next year I won't be here anymore? First of all, I work for the club. Second, for this club, it's super important to create certain conditions. What he's meaning is to grow players. As we have seen, it was the children who, in a very difficult moment for Pinto, guaranteed the 30 million needed to satisfy a terrible settlement agreement. Talking about financial fair play here, with the 30 million being raised by, what was it, June 22nd or something like that, end of June. And then what good is it for the children if I have only 1 year of contract remaining? Pagano will become good. I don't want to say that yet about Pisili because I see him more of as a kid, even physically. He will have to have great development, but he has the right mind. Pagano will be like Bove. I see Pagano a bit more attacking. I think he has much more fantasista in him. And this is a player I think could have a breakout season, much the way that Bove did. So I think when he says will be like Bove, I don't think he means player style. I think he means somebody who's integrated into the group, who gets minutes, and if he does well, will be further integrated into the squad, not just as fringe, but also as a squad, a rotational player. And that's what I'm hoping. About Dybala. When August first arrived and the clause could no longer be exercised, I slept better. For us, he's gold. We can't give up. People know his potential as a player. I can say that for his potential as a young man, he is in no way inferior. And then he speaks about Saudi. He says, I received 2 offers, Al Hilal and Al Ali. I thought about it, and before going to the match, I informed the ownership, clarifying that I had no intention of accepting. At home, I said exactly the same thing. On one hand, I felt like a prisoner of the word given to the players in Budapest and to the fans after Spezia mentioning the stay. But if you ask me, I didn't accept only for this reason. I answer no, not only for this. There it is. Make what you want of it. I think it tells us a few things in that, one, Mourinho is staying. There won't be some early exit, some surprise shock exit maybe next year when his contract is up. And then on top of that, it looks like he's happy to have the youth integrated. On top of that, he also wants Morata. I think that's pretty clear here. And I think that you should give the manager the players that he wants to a point. Like if there's some special requests, I think that ownership always is obligated to provide the manager who is seen as this kind of like demigod of the club, right? Because Mourinho is given a lot of faith. He's given a lot more respect than other managers, that when someone specifically tells you, bring in this player, it's Pinto's job now to go and try and get it, regardless of how we feel about Morata, because I know that a lot of fans are not hot on him. He's not my first choice. He's not somebody who I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, did we sign Morata? No, I don't think of that at all. But let's keep going to the comments in here. Okay, Leo says, Santos looks like a Venezuelan women team of 2005. They're really bad. Marcos has scored 6 goals in the last 7 matches. Think it's a good thing, this. Ooh, I heard he scored at the last second of extra added time, right? In like the 96th minute the other day. He scored a penalty kick at the very end. Vincent says, the striker I want most is Lukaku, but I think he's out of our price range. I think Lukaku, man, Vincent, I think that he's a little past it. I don't think that he comes, like last year with Inter, I don't think he did a good job coming into the season. Like he didn't look ready. He looked unfit. He's not old. He's like, what, 31? How old is Lukaku? Let me look up real quick. Lukaku is 30 years old. So, I mean, this is crazy. Now the Juventus is looking to replace him. They're looking to bring him in and then sell Vlahovic to Chelsea. Bro, that is a mistake. I would get rid of Allegri way before Vlahovic. I know that's not the way to do things, but okay, let's do it differently. I think Vlahovic is an incredible striker. The fact that he's not scoring, he didn't score 25 goals last year. He only scored a handful. That's crazy, man. I wish Roma could get Vlahovic in. That's just so nuts. H. Ace says he believes Mourinho renewing his contract only depends on Morata. And if he didn't get him this season, it will end badly. Mark my words. SB, regarding the Matic rumors that Rennes will be offering him a 3-year deal, says, I think if the club really wants to keep Matic, then we should offer him a new contract. Maybe. If we want top 4, we need a new keeper. It's, in my opinion, it's very difficult that Roma, I know this is not what people want to hear. I think it's very difficult. Roma are on the outside looking in that they can make the top 4. Let's make this into a banner. Can Roma make the top 4 with the current squad? And I want to hear your comments and your thoughts to this. I say no, because I think that not that this team is bad. I think Awar is a great addition. I think Dybala is gold, like Mourinho says. I think Belotti will score more than 10 goals this season. I know that sounds like a stretch coming off of last, but I think that he will. I think that the midfield is solid, even without Renato Sanchez. Do I think the wingbacks struggle a little bit? Yeah. I think I look at the right back right now, that situation. I'm not convinced with Christensen. He scored an own goal the other day. Let's see how that plays out. The left back can Zalewski grow? Can he prove that he's developed? Maybe. Can Spinazzola keep his form? Can he stay fit? Maybe. There's so many maybes. Is Ibanez covered yet? No. So Roma play with a back three and only have 4 defenders as of this very moment. Rui Patricio, old, makes mistakes. Svilar, who knows? Unproven. This is a total, to me, right now, I'm looking at a team which has the quality of, I think, 5th place, because I think Atalanta are significantly stronger. They're signing Scamacca, who's not even in his prime yet. They have Lookman, who's great. They signed another player. I forget. I think his name's Torre, right? Another attacker on the right. He's going to be good. They've still got Coop Miners there. They've got Martin Derun. They just signed the Bosnian player. Oy, Maron. Let me just look up Atalanta's squad. I'm not like trying to run off the top of my head here. Zapata still, Lookman, Demiral, who I rate very much as a defender, Scalvini, who's becoming a starting center back for them, Muriel, El Bilal Torre, who's a young player, and I think that he could be something special, 21-year-old, from the Ivory Coast. Ederson, who I also rate, Brazilian midfielder. Pasalic is still there. Juan Musso, good keeper. Toloi, Palomino. So they've kept a lot. Brendan Sopi, good outside player there. Karnesecki, Kolasinac is the Bosnian player I was thinking of. Matteo Ruggeri. So Zappacosta still there. Hateboer. Like, they're stacked. How does this team not finish at least 4? So I think that they're going to end up with at least 4th. Inter, one of the best midfields in the world, if they sign Samardzic, or even if they don't, you're still looking at Barella with Fratesi, with Çalhanoğlu, who's going to play as the deeper player there. Inter's strong. Lautaro Martinez, one of the more impressive strikers in world football right now. They're going to do good, man. Milan just signed like a plethora of players, including Pulisic and Chukwueze and a ton of other guys in their midfielders. Like, they're totally covered. They're probably going to be better, much better than last season. So Juventus, always strong. You can't write out Juve. You've got Napoli, who should be able to do very well, even with their sales. I think Osimhen stays. So right now, Roma are 5th or 6th. What do you guys think? Okay, to the comments right now. Let's see. Oh, Marco's here, my favorite. Hi, Marco. What would you be happy with? I'll go back to this one for a second. I would be happy with Zapata. Arnautovic, to me, it's just like whatever. It's a whatever signing. If he works out, great. If he doesn't, people will say, I told you so. Okie doke. Let's see what else we got here. Marco wants a new goalkeeper, and he has a lot to say to the Mourinho fans. Decisive penalty. Speaking about Marcos Leonardo. Yeah, we love Marco. I think we only sold Ibanez because we're confident in landing Morata. Let's see. Definitely a lot's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 days within this business week, Monday through Friday. Today's, it's Monday. It's 4:46 where I am. It's the work week's almost over. It's almost 11 o'clock at night in Italy. Over the next few days, we're definitely going to see a lot happening, I think, on the Roma front. I agree. This is a good team. There just needs a little bit of patchwork. Like Marco says here, gel it up. Is it far from being an awesome team? I don't think so. But these things have to get covered. Rui Patricio, I think, is ready to be the second string. That, to me, is an emergency area. Now, the 3-5-2. I would say that Roma needs a killer left winger. I'm not so sure anymore. I think that Dybala is more than enough. Would I like to see somebody come in and be that second string after him on the right, like the right-sided forward? Maybe that's Solbakken right as of now. So then you've got Belotti, Marcos Leonardo comes in, maybe Arnautovic too. And then you've got some gas. Then you really got something to work with there. A second string wingback, or I should say a second string center back, and then an outside player and Renato Sanchez. Could it be done? Maybe with this 30 million. Maybe it could be. Okay. Let's keep looking. Atalanta will get top 4 for sure. Very big ask. Yeah, it is. It is. We will not make the top 4 with this squad, but with Spalletti, yes. Well, I don't know what Spalletti's up to these days. He's probably chilling on his farm in Tuscany. The only small chance on the top 4 is if Dybala stays healthy. Dion says, I think the problem is the Friedkins. Well, this is a fully loaded question here, Dion. In order for the team to be up here, right, they've got to get a stadium. Why is it taking so long? Because of red tape, because every single step needs to be approved, because in Italy, construction is very difficult. It's tedious. It takes a very long time if it happens at all. This is why James Pallotta sold the club, because he could not get the stadium done. And they tried for over 7 years. It's not the Friedkins issue. It is one of the nature of Italian politics. Now, on top of that, being constrained by financial fair play. Ioannis, nice to see you, my man. He says, I think the fact that our whole starting lineup has stayed, barring Ibanez and Tammy, means that the system has been drilled even more into the squad. And yes, I like that a lot, which means that Roma are not as far from the top 4 as some think. I like that. I like the optimism, Ioannis. Marco says, we're going to solve the problem with Pellegrini's position. I don't know. Right now, it looks like he's going to play deeper in the 5, and I think that suits him much better, Marco. What's up, Rocco? Did I miss your thoughts on Pinto's transfer work? It's just we were more or less looking at how Pinto is going to reinvest. So I asked this question here. How should it be reinvested? What does Pinto do now? The hard work of getting rid of the dead weight is gone. Starting with who's the most, I don't want to call Ibanez dead weight. He was a starting player, but an insurmountable amount of players who would have been cleared. Now a tough section will begin, a tough chapter in Pinto's book in his time at Roma, how it gets reinvested. So let's see. I like the idea of Marcos Leonardo, but as we've said, there's other positions which need to get covered. Ioannis says, I'll be happy with Marcos, more experienced striker, and maybe a backup for the D. We also have Pagano, Pisili, and other youth coming up. Rocco says, we have to question Pinto's scouting work. His players are either undercooked, injury prone, or simply average. He has to be questioned at that. On top of that, he's limited, right? Pinto's not allowed to spend any money, hasn't been allowed to. So all those guys have been brought in for free. He's limited. And could many of us have done better? I don't know. I don't know that we really could have, imagine your budget 0 until you sell a player every year for the past 2 years. And sometimes it's even deficit. It's tough, guys. Don't know if I missed it, but I love your take on Mourinho's interview. Yeah, Ioannis, we covered it, and that's in the first part. So these are always available recorded. So they go straight to my YouTube page as being recorded. But there's a couple things he covered there, which was the Mercato. He basically doesn't come out and say it, but we can infer that he wants Morata. He talks about what convinced him to join Roma and the Saudi interest. And we were looking also at some of the squads that these Saudi Arabian clubs are building, like Al Ahly, with Diogo Jota is even out there, Al Hilal, some of the teams that tried to get Mourinho in. So Pinto's been limited, and we're not even offering Champions League football. Take that into account. These are good perspectives. I don't think it's just that, Pinto didn't want Fratesi. Pinto didn't want Scamacca. I don't think that's it at all. Now, Scamacca came out and said Roma disappeared. Why is that? Because Pinto's unprofessional? No. Probably because they're acting only in a way they're waiting on something. They're waiting on Ibanez. Now they can move. Now it's too late. What did they do from here? Let's see. And Rocco, why is that? Because now Ibanez has been sold. Only now can Roma spend because of financial stipulations, because they need to comply with FFP, something Mourinho complains about and Pinto gets really upset about if you listen to his interviews. So we are on the back end here. There's a couple more things I want to take a look at too. And one of those is the kits as we transition here. let's take a look at this. So Luca, I think, or is it Luca? Let me see. It was Luca. And he's been sending some really good stuff in our WhatsApp group chat. And I want to take a look back at some of these kits which have come out right now. So let's go to no, not new sponsorships, but that should also be addressed. Is that around 2/3 of Serie A teams are looking for sponsors right now, with many in the bottom half, and then Roma, of course, and Inter are going to go to Paramount most likely. But yeah, Serie A is having trouble from a marketing side and getting big name sponsors. So this is a rating. Milan comes in 5th. The new Napoli kit is pretty sharp here from NSS magazine. I like it. Simple, decent, MSC cruise ship. Bologna. I don't know if I would give Bologna number 3 here. Like maybe the collar is pretty cool, but otherwise it just looks like any other Bologna kit. I will say this kit is pretty sharp by Lazio. The collar looks a little baseballish to me, but I do like the texture of the eagle. You know, it doesn't just have to be the eagle, whatever. You know, take any team's logo here. I like the imagery of it. I think it came out pretty decent. But then number 1 is La Roma, La Lupa. Eccolo. Pretty cool box. Cool branding there from Adidas. See if I can zoom in on that. That looks pretty sweet. Hopefully I'll get to the Roma store sometime this year. But in New York, they should be carrying it. I'm just hoping that they carry the other gear as well. Speaking of marketing, though, I also came across this one article here about the United States in the Italian market. And as we look across, we see a lot of clubs, AC Milan, American owned right now, a couple others, they're listed here, Venezia, and their ambitions with fashion. So they had Busio, he was doing okay, and Tanner Tessman, American influence here is very strong. Fiorentina with Rocco Commisso, Parma with Kraus, Genoa, Roma, of course, Spal, and Spezia. So Serie A becoming very American. How so? Why? Because they see a gap in the market. They see something which has been underserved, and there's a big desire from American companies and American people who want to have Italian roots, but also see a marketing potential where they can double, triple, quadruple their profit, their investment, I should say, and see a big return. And that is something which is very good, I think, for the league, because it shows that even if there is these issues with sponsorship and whatnot, that long-term investors do see beyond just the emotional attachment. They do see that there is a future of Italian football. Okay. What's up, Giuseppe? How are you, my man? So we're not totally confident, but we do feel that the team is pretty good. They're at a pretty good status right now, but need a couple plugs filled, such as the starting striker, the keeper, maybe a wing back here and a replacement center back. Maybe Renato Sanchez comes in. That would be very nice too. So right now, I think Roma's like between 4th, 5th, and 6th, depending on chemistry, depending on injuries. But I think that we have a pretty decent feeling as of right now. Untested in Italy, Marcos has been the main striker in one of Brazil's most historic clubs for a couple of seasons. That's crazy. 20 years old, and it's already a couple of seasons he's been their main guy. I like that a lot. They couldn't promise more money to Santos. Yeah, it's good. Ioannis is on his stuff here. He knows ball. Yeah, they are. I'm waiting for the black one, if I'm honest with you guys. Said, not sure, buddy. Commisso became more Italian than ever since he was understood. Yeah, he's a little disappointed now in seeing the way that things go. He wants to build his new stadium, and he's disappointed with all the red tape. And I was asked earlier, Giuseppe, like, how come the Friedkins haven't been able to do the stadium? It's because people have to understand that in Italy, it's tedious, it's time-taking, beyond time-taking. You straight up might not get it done, as the Friedkins have found out. As Pelota found out with Tor di Valle in southwest Rome when they were trying to get that done. In land which is not used at all, the city would not pass it through. And that's disappointing. So, yeah, Commisso found out more than anyone right now, as did Pelota. So I think that in time, hopefully legislation changes. Hopefully Italy is more lenient or passes a law or allows there to be easier investment and for clubs to privately own their stadiums for the sake of Italian football, or else we're deemed to these cycles of every 8 to 12 years, Italy is good. Because right now, Italy's not good. Italy's far from good. And there needs to be a change at its core. One part of that is investment. How do you get investment with stadiums? And another one of that is, I think, with subsidies and having an overall organization with youth teams. Also, with Serie C, you see Atalanta joining Juventus right now, which is a really great idea. And that needs to be adopted by all the big Italian teams. Pinto knew it was on the horizon with talking to Scamacca, just as he knew with Marcos. The fact is, he wasn't willing to spend. I don't think it is that. It's not that he's not willing to spend. I don't think it's that at all. I really just think that he's limited and he can only do what he can at the time. He can't promise. He can't rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't think that's how it works here. What do we need to change? The style of play, new players or what? I just think we need depth, Marco. I think that there needs to be cohesion throughout the entire team. And if one player, like a key player like Dybala, goes down, there needs to be someone who can fill in the void. And Solbakken is unproven. There needs to be guys there who are truly capable and have proven it in Serie A, who have proven it. That's hard though, because then we go back to this issue of Roma not being able to invest. And it's like this merry-go-round of conversation. It's tough. But as Joanna says here, so far we have a couple free transfers which are working. Okay, I don't know why my microphone went out, but looks like we're back. Sorry. So Indica still looks very raw. In preseason, he's made a couple mistakes, but Aouar seems to have adopted very quickly to Mourinho's tactics. So, Luca, what's up, man? I think the Euro bid with Turkey will help the country fast forward with the stadiums. It's a good point. I hope so too. I really think that could be a thing, but it has to be private. They have to give these stadiums to the teams. If Jose doesn't renew his contract and move on at the end of the season, how would you view this era? I like the spin of this team, and I think we're set up for the future. I think there's still SP. I think there's still major potential here for Roma to do something in the third season, get back to the Europa League final, go and win it in Dublin. Like to be there, very much like to be there if that happens. Never been to Ireland, but in that case, if he gets back, he's going to win it for sure. If it was to end right now, I think if one thing, it set mentality, and I think it helped this team grow, and I think it showed Rome what a professional manager does and what players should be and not allowed to get away with, and that this city should not be viewed as just a destination like maybe some other players like Pedro have done in the past. You know, he's still chilling at Lazio. So anyway, so I do agree with Luca here, and Luca, we used some of your links before, so thank you for that from the WhatsApp group. And hopefully that does help that bid along with Turkey there. We can change the style with some dynamic players. Yeah, also true. Not false from Rocco there. Get players in who are adapted to the league, maybe young prospects, somebody like Baldanzi, who I think would be good. You know, even if he is playing as a second striker, I think that he would be an ideal guy to recover from Dybala. I think if he can get a little bit more shots off, he's more of an assist man than a shooter, but I like him a lot. I think he could still there has to be a vice Dybala, and I don't know if that's Solbakken yet. Okay. Guys, comments, likes, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you haven't. 25 people in here right now. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap things up if there's no more comments. 13 days, Salernitana. There's a lot that's going to happen between then and there, then and now. Yeah, then and now. Also, put the alerts on. I set up the stream for the preview to that game. That's going to happen the Thursday before that match. So that's in about 10 days from now. So make sure on my page, if you could, set the alerts so you know exactly when I come on. Buon viaggio, Ibanez. It's a loss, but I think it was time. I think it was for the best. And let's see what Pinto can cook up with less than 2 weeks to go now. Okay, last question here from Rocco. Can you say that he made Roma better? I think he has made Roma much more efficient is the answer here, in that he's going to help grease those wheels, and he will give Roma the leverage to go on and sign players in the future and lower the wage bill and get players who are wasting Roma's time, wasting Roma's
balanced book and really holding back the rest of the team. That was the first part. Now the second part will be adding in a little tinkers here and there, a couple gaps, if you will, so we can float and Roma can go on and win something this season. And I think that they do have the possibility. I would have loved Canonto. I would have loved Canonto, to be honest, Rocco. But that was a player who also went for big money. So Roma right now has to sign a striker. Let's see what happens between now and the end of the week. Let's be in touch. Thank you very much, guys. We'll talk soon. Ciao.